I've often wondered about my ancestors, not ones you would find on any family history site, rather, my ancient ancestors, the ones that time has long since forgotten. As someone with nearly complete German DNA, with the smaller parts being Scottish and Welsh, I find myself wondering about my ancient brethren, what they looked like, what they ate, what their day to day life was like, and more importantly, how they shaped who I am today. This led me down a strange rabbit hole of research and discovery, and it was what inspired me to make this speech. As someone who thoroughly enjoys history, especially European history, I was eager and willing to dive into this convoluted subject. In this short presentation, I will explore the history and prehistoric humans all the way up to the modern day Western civilization. We will cover all the main groups that have contributed to the genetic pool of the modern day European. Early humans in Europe. Some of the first humans that we have discovered evidence of in Europe are who we associate with the Augnacious culture. These people entered Europe through the Balkans around 45,000 BC. They later solidified into what we now know as the Augnacious culture in Western Europe, including France, Spain, and Germany. Some of the first evidence of art, tools, instruments, and shelter in Europe were from this culture, and some of the first ever evidence in human history of spiritual practices and symbolic thinking came from this culture as well. After the Augnacious culture, the Gravettian culture developed, and this culture was the first evidence of Venus figurines, implying a expansion in spirituality, and what we call fertility culture, which is again one of the first religious practices in the human race. They built semi-permanent structures, and they had an increased social organization from the previous cultures. They had a huge advancement in art, and they developed around 33,000 BC. After the Gravettian culture evolves the Solutrean culture, and they had a huge advancement in stone tools. They were cold climate masters as they lived at the height of the Ice Age, the coldest part of the Ice Age, and these people shaped the start of what we now know as Western civilization with their spiritual and societal customs. Although they're not exactly what they would have been like in ancient times, the roots of things that Western society does is found in the Solutrean culture. They were in Western Europe, especially France and Spain, and they evolved around 22,000 BC. Those are the main hunter-gatherer groups. There's a lot of like splinter groups and small split-offs, but none of them were as major as those three. After the hunter-gatherers, migrations from the outside world started happening. The first such being the Anatolian farming societies. As the name suggests, they were from what we now know as Anatolia, modern day Turkey, around that area. But before they were in Turkey, they were in the Fertile Crescent, in sort of the Babylonian area. They grew crops like wheat, barley, lentils, and peas. They raised livestock like goats, sheep, and cow. And they initially had low intermingling with the native hunter-gatherers of Europe, and they entered the Balkan region in around 7000 BC. After that, farming rapidly spreads throughout Europe, starting in 6500 BC with their Starkevo-Koros-Kris network, which was a network of three separate cultures around the Balkan and Caspian Sea area. We also have the Ertebello people in Germany and Denmark. The Cardial-Ware culture appears on the Mediterranean coast. The Vinca culture appear in the Balkans, and the funnel beaker culture appear in Northern Europe. So as you can see, all of Europe is now mainly farmers, and that is the dominant way of life in Europe. But as we will get into with the next migration farming was not the only way of life left in Europe. After farming was established, we have the Yamnaya uh, mass migrating into Europe, and they start what we now know as the Indo-European migrations into Europe, which is a whole other can of worms that I won't be able to get into in this speech, but they're also very important to European descent. The Yamnaya emerge on the Pontic-Caspian steppe, and they're kind of their own culture away from the rest of Europe, in what we now know as like modern day Ukraine and Kazakhstan. And they were some of the first ever humans to ride and domesticate horses. They also are now believed to be the first ones to develop the wheel. It was formerly thought to be in Mesopotamia. And if we can prove that they were the first ones to develop the wheel, it would have been almost I want to say 1,000 years before what it would have been in Mesopotamia. They are the father of nearly all European languages. They were a warlike, nomadic people, so they weren't settled farmers. They still roamed around, and they herded cattle, but they still hunted and gathered as well. They first interacted with the corded ware people, but soon reached all the way to Central and Western Europe, and eventually the Mediterranean. They have a substantial genetic impact on the ancestry of modern day Europe. So, as we can see, there are three main groups that make up the ancestry of modern day Europeans. Many Europeans have around 40 to 50% Yamnaya DNA, around 30 to 60% Anatolian farmer DNA, and around 10 to 30% European hunter-gatherer DNA. I think it's important to be able to study your people and your ancestry, and not only that, but I think it's important to study about the cultures, myths, and way of life of your ancestors. In researching the people who came to make who I am, I have gained a sense of comfort, empowerment, and pride in my lineage, and I encourage everyone to do the same. Again, I think it's a really important thing to do, and yeah, thank you for your time.